Okay, so today I'm going to be speaking on a massive narrative that has kind of clouded over the MMA community for a good year or two now. Obviously, it's been an issue for quite a while. People have had a big problem with it for a long time now. However, recently, especially with Jake Paul speaking out on this issue and everything, it's really come to fruition. It's kind of surfaced from the cracks of, people in comment sections and fighters speaking out a little bit. I'm going to quickly speak on this video, and I hope you'll enjoy. Please subscribe. Just pushing for that 1,000 subscribers in 2023. I think we can do it. Just keep grinding. We're at like 105 right now, so let's keep going, boys. Let's keep pushing forward. And let me speak about this. UFC fighter pay. Big things going on within the PFL. I made a separate video about that. You can have a look at that. It's on the channel. Made it like last week about Jake Paul. I'm going to say this now. I think the UFC fighters get paid extremely fairly. As in, extremely fairly. The lower level fighters at the bottom of cards get paid a flat fee, right? Typically it's 12 and 12, sometimes it could be 11 and 11, right? $24,000, right? Then they get taxed and they have to pay their coaches and they have to pay for their camps, their food. A lot of them have sponsors, right? A lot of them have sponsors. Some of them don't, okay? You can't wear sponsorships in the cage because the UFC is a legitimate sport. They want it to be like a uniform. I get that. I do get that, in all fairness. Like I quite like that aspect of it. Like I really do. It's like the premier promotion. I do really like that aspect, and fighters don't, obviously, because you're missing out on a lot of money. But outside of fighting, if you've got an Instagram following, you've got your sponsors there, you've got sponsors to pay for your camp if you do a few posts about them. However, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about that later in the video. The flat fee, okay, this is what I want to get across for you. 12 and 12 plus like 3,000 from the Venom sponsorship, right? Let's say they get 28,000. They have to pay their coaches, pay for their camp, and they have to live life. If you're fighting 3 times a year and fighting out your contract, that's doable, right? However, I think minimum UFC fighters should be paid starting salary 15 and 15 plus the Venom promotional thing, which is like $3,000 or something. That's fair. The fighters that are coming up bring no value to the card. Whenever I'm watching prelims, I don't care if these two fighters win or they lose. They bring no value to the card or my life. They're there to fill the card and like get their wins up, get their highlights up, try break through. They don't deserve $30,000, but they're going to get it. That's fair. That's perfectly fair. Someone like Paddy Pimblett coming through from Cage Warriors, he deserves a bit more money. However, he fought 12 and 12 for his first fight, his second fight, and then his third fight he got his contract changed because he brings something. He brings value, he brings eyes, he's a star. Michael Chandler comes over from Bellator. He definitely did not start on the starting salary. However, he had a name for himself. He was bringing value to the card. Everyone was speaking about it. We wonder how Michael Chandler will do against Dan Hooker in the UFC. This is another issue. Boxing is full of people that avoid fights and don't fight each other. The UFC prides themselves on the best fighting the best. Justin Gaethje makes too much money. I'm just going to hold up the lightweight division. I'm not going to fight Fiziev despite losing like two out of my last 4. One by first round submission after he getting dropped, and the other by second round inverted triangle by Khabib. Like, fucking hell, Gaethje. You're not worth really much. As you all know, I made a video of how much I hate Justin Gaethje. So I'm giving it a bit of a personal jab at him. However, he's fighting Fiziev now, so that's good. We'll make a video on that in the future. But I just want to get this across. You make too much money if you're only fighting once a year. The UFC want big fights. They want you to fight. If you're healthy, fucking fight. Like, he's making too much money to just sit around and do nothing until the right fight comes along. He's not gotten out of the Fiziev one, so I'm fucking happy about that. And I bet you they're paying him a hell of a lot of money to do it. Another prime example is Jorge Masvidal. Sitting there, waiting, declining Gilbert Burns, wanting to fight in London in March. I wonder why. So you can be on the Edwards-Usman pay-per-view, and if you win, sets up the Edwards fight. Like, shut up. Yeah, that's kind of being smart with it. Sets up the fight really well. Mate, you've made too much money to just sit around and wait and not take fights. You're an old man now. You're an old man now. The UFC pays fighters extremely fair for their value of worth. They give McGregor a massive portion of the pay-per-views because they see whenever he fights, they do over 1 million buys just like that. 1.5 million buys, easy, no bother. So they give him what, 30%, 40% of the pay-per-view money? He makes a fucking massive amount. But this video is more aimed at the people starting up. If the UFC is where you want to be. If you're 5-0 and PFL say, right, we'll give you 40 grand a fight, and the UFC say we'll give you 24 grand a fight, don't go to PFL. Build a career in the UFC. Start in the UFC, please. It's just as the best platform. If you go out there and get a highlight reel knockout on PFL, great. It'll be on a few TikTok reels, try and promote you in PFL. Maybe you'll get 13,000 followers. If you get a highlight reel performance and KO in the UFC, 400,000 followers, just like that. And if you've got a bit of a personality, 400,000 followers. You then fight once more for 24 grand. Plus a 50,000 performance bonus. Not bad. Go up a contract. Get 50 and 50. 100k to fight. Nice. Knock someone out. 50,000 performance of the night. 50,000 fight of the night. Sponsorships messaging you on Instagram. Oh, do this post. We'll pay for this in your fight camps. Oh, we'll give you gear. We'll give you that. There's so many ways. Living life right now, especially in the UK, is so fucking expensive, right? It is so expensive, okay? Money's value has gone down and things have gotten more expensive. However, if you make a good amount of money in the UFC in your first fight, let's say you knock someone out, get a 50,000 bonus, you're fine. And the eyeballs that are on you will allow brands to get in contact with you. If you've got a bit of a personality, oh look, we were looking to sponsor some fighters. Also, as an amateur fighter and as a starting out UFC fighter, sponsorships are hard to come by, especially nowadays, but they can be done and you can get funded and support for your training. And this is my one thing though. If a fighter is being responsible for it with his money and he's training hard every day and he's got a family and he's looking after the fighters, he shouldn't have to be working a second job. That's my one thing. The UFC need to look into people's financial situations and their outgoings, and I think that should play a factor in the contracts. I really do, and I feel like if they do a background check and they figure out how much is outgoings, I don't know, I just feel like they could implement something like that. However, I had a very good point I wanted to say. I had a really, really good point I've just forgotten. Oh, fuck, that's so annoying. I'm going to remember it in 10 minutes after I finish recording. I was speaking about fighter pay. I was speaking about what the UFC offers you. Fuck, it's went out my head. That's so annoying. It was a really good point as well. I was saying about how the fighters shouldn't have to. There shouldn't be people. However, this is my point. I think this was my point. Let's say there's a guy, right? Young guy coming up, just him to look after, has to pay his camp, pay his coaches, pay for food, and he pays to live. They'd have a look into him. He does it they're gonna be smart about it. They're not gonna give some random kid who off the street $30,000 to turn up and fight on the opener of a prelim. This is where boxing's gone wrong. People don't fight each other. They make so much money, and you have the odd ones like Mayweather, Canelo, who make so much money and yet still fight. Then in the UFC, you get a lot of whiny, complaining bitches who don't want to go into camp, don't want to fight, just don't want to fight anybody ranked lower than them. They're being paid too much. So UFC said, look, we'll pay you more if you go down and fight this guy, and they're on a little contract. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I feel like the actual word fighter is dying out. If you're not a fucking you can be a professional fighter, but you might not be a fucking alpha anybody anywhere within reason. If it's a smart move, I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts on fighter pay? I think it's completely fair. I truly don't have an issue with it. Obviously, if I was a fighter in the UFC, I'd probably say, look, I want a bit more. But then you also have to take into consideration you're on the massive stage. You're on a massive stage. You have the option of the 50,000 bonus or the performance bonus. That's 2 bonuses that you could get potentially. Right? You get the Venom sponsorship. That's a little amount, but that covers the food in the camp maybe. 8 weeks worth of food, $3,000. That's fine. You know, and then you get your flat fee. And you also get the stage you're on. Like, come on, guys. PFL has nothing on them. But they still have to be careful.